Hello, 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 and welcome to everybody. We are very, very grateful that you are here. This is the launch and celebration of Maria Iliffe-Wood's latest book, A Caged Mind. And I am Jacqueline Hollows, also known as JB Hollows, and I'll be your facilitator and host for this evening. So just before we move on to the celebration, I would like to do a little bit of housekeeping. So to let you know that this meeting is being recorded and will go onto Maria's YouTube channel. However, the only people in the recording will be myself and Maria. So you don't have to worry if you haven't put your lippy on or brushed your hair or whatever. So that's all good. Also, you'll notice that the chat facility, you can only talk to myself, Maria, and our good friend, Jamie Fiore-Higgins.
And Jules.
And Jules, of course. And Maria loves questions. So if you have questions, if you reflect on things, please, please, please do post your questions to Jamie or myself, and we'll make sure that they get to Maria. We're going to keep everybody on mute just because it makes things a little bit easier with all the different bits and bobs. But we really do want to hear from you. So during the next hour, you'll get to hear from Maria. And she'll read a chapter of A Caged Mind. She'll be asked some questions, and she'll be launching a competition to win a limited edition of the print of the book cover, which is amazing, and some other exciting things. So stay to the end for some exciting news and opportunities. All right, I'm going to introduce you now, Maria, if you're ready.
Yes, I'm ready. Brilliant. Thank you.
All right then. So Maria describes herself as a voracious reader, and she realized later on in her life that the safe place she found through her reading was actually her own spiritual essence. And that insight opened up a whole world of dreams for Maria. She was already a successful leadership coach and had written and published her first book, Coaching Presence, which is used in coaching qualifications and actually has been translated into Russian and South Korean and has been read in over 20 countries.
That I know of.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Maria's also the author of Daily Yarns, which she wrote and published during lockdown, and 2 anthologies in the Method Writing with Jules Swales series of books. And quite amazingly, Maria not only authored some of the stories in those method writing books, she also started an indie press so that she could publish them. So she's pretty amazing and prolific, and I'm sure that you all know that, and that's why you're here. So one of the things that I know about Maria is, in addition to being passionate about writing, she's also really passionate about helping others get their work into the world. So she's designed a number of courses that take people from an idea to a published book. And those courses are on her website. We'll be sending you all this information later. So if you miss any of the links in the chat, you will get it.
Whether you
I could go on and on. I could go on and on about this beautiful, humble woman, but I will wrap up by saying that I'm honoured to call her a dear, dear friend and wonderful colleague. So, Maria, I wanted to start with, in your bio, it says it all started with Anne Frank. I'd love to know more about that.
Well, the Anne Anne Frank diary, and sorry, thank you so much for all of that wonderful introduction. We hadn't rehearsed any of that, so thank you. Not that we've rehearsed a lot, but so yeah, the Anne Frank's diary was really the only book that I remember reading as a child. And there's a few things now that strike me about that. And in A Caged Mind, in one of the sections, I talk about the insights that I've had over my life and the things that have this spiritual understanding that has helped my life are more like a dot-to-dot picture, and a picture emerges than a linear process. And so when I look back now to my childhood, it's really striking to me that Anne Frank is the only book that I really remember. It really resonated with me. Here was a girl who felt trapped in a home. Well, she was trapped during the war, and was writing about her life, and she had a difficult relationship with her mum. And it's ironic to me now that you know, she was also a writer. She wanted to write books. I mean, Anne Frank's diary was the only one that she ever wrote. But her book really struck me as a child and stayed with me right through to adulthood. And it's synchronicity. I can't even get my words out. What's the word?
Synchronicity?
Something like that. Thank you. That, you know, the latest book that I've written is about my life, and that I'm a writer, when it was Anne Frank that really inspired me as a child. So
wow.
so yeah, so when I look at all the dots now, I join the dots up and I can see how that book and that character, that person, was such a strong influence really now. And I didn't realize that at the time. Didn't realize it for many years. So
that's amazing.
and I think when I look back over my life, like I now see lots and lots of different breadcrumbs that I didn't know were breadcrumbs at the time, leading me to where I am now. I didn't know where life was leading me, and I could never have dreamt this. All that you talked about, you know, the leadership coaching I've been doing for a long time, the books, the publishing press, the writing courses, like none of that was in my plan, my life's plan. But I can look back now and see all the breadcrumbs that have led to that.
Why? And what would you say to somebody who wanted to write a book when, you know, you've published 5 books and that some people can't even start? What would you say, and what sort of advice might you give them?
I knew for a long time that I was going to write a book, but I never had any clue what it was going to be. Like the first book, Coaching Presence, I didn't know that that was the topic of the book that I was going to write. But I was writing on a regular basis. It took me a long time to start writing. I started writing on a regular basis as a child, and then stopped when my dad read my diary. Like one day I came home I was only, I don't know, 15, 16. I came home from school and he told me about this great book that he'd read, and then described my diary. And that stopped me writing completely. I didn't write again for years and years and years. And then when I started writing, I didn't want to do it. I had to do it as part of my qualification, a coaching qualification. But I had to do it for that. And then, but something stuck, and then I just got into a real regular habit of writing every day. So, you know, I just think if you want to write a book, you have to write. You have to write on a regular basis. And I think that you have to write an awful lot of stuff before you start, actually, a book starts to emerge. You know, when I think back, I was writing for, I don't know, before the first book, probably several years, writing on a regular basis before I even knew that I was going to write a book. So, and then another way of doing it is by joining one of Jules's classes, because that's where at least 2 of my books have come from.
Well, I'm not gonna let you swipe away from you, because I know you don't like the spotlight and you like everybody else to get praise. What's that's fascinating, Maria. It's fascinating. And what I heard there was, if you want to write a book, start writing, basically, because when you start writing, the book emerges, which is what it sounded like from you.
Yeah, I wouldn't. So one thing I definitely would say is, don't hold on to any ideas of what you think the book's going to be, because you can have an idea of the book, and actually lots of people do have an idea of the book that they're going to write, and they map it all out and they plan it. So if it makes sense to you to do that, then do it. But for me, the books have come about through the writing, and what I've done is I've seen a theme show up in the writing, and then I've realized that I was writing a book. In fact, I think you and Jules knew that I was writing a book called The Daily Yarns even before I knew it was going to be a book.
Yes.
It's emerging. And that's what I've really loved, particularly about the way that I write, is that it's like the book comes through me rather than me determining what it's going to be. Even coaching presence, I didn't really determine what it was going to be. I didn't know I was writing a book about presence until the book was almost finished.
Wow.
I thought I was writing a book about my coaching, and I was about my coaching, but it was really about presence.
Wow. Wow. Well, we'll come on to later the link between those two books, but I wondered, because I know that you had got the bones of A Caged Mind, and then you published all these other books in between, the Daily Yarns and the 2 anthologies. Can you talk to us a little bit about that journey and why that was so?
It wasn't a plan. Again, like, none of this has been a plan, really. So I started classes with Jules, what's that, over 4 years ago now. Noticed that there was a theme to some of my writing, and kind of kept watching that, and then got to a point where I can't remember how many I'd got, but I thought, yeah, I think I've got a book here. And I put it all together in one place. I had it edited. Jules in those days was doing some editing. I was very grateful to her for doing that. I learned a lot through that process. We can talk about that another time, but through the editing process, I learned a lot about the writing, and I actually thought it was done. And then I just didn't get to it anymore. I kept picking it up every now and again, and putting it down again, and not really moving on it. And I remember Jules said to me one time, this book might never get published. And there was a little voice in me that went, no, there's no way. I've not put all this effort into writing this book and it not get published. But there was also a part of me that kind of let go of the idea that it would get published. And then the pandemic hit, and I started writing the Daily Yarns. It was just what occurred to me when I hadn't got any other work to do, because all the work had dropped off. And then it became obvious that was going to become a book. So I just thought, when it was clear that could be a book, I just thought, something, I'm just going to try self-publishing this, and see what it's like, see what it takes. And I'm the kind of person who has a go at something and then finds out how to do it, rather than the other way around. So I made a lot of mistakes. And during this time, people have started asking me for help with their books. And I was, pretty surprised at people asking me. I was thinking, why would they be asking me to help? I've not got a long background in writing or publishing or editing or whatever, but just do that. And then I think you had the idea for the character, for the summer chapbook, we called it, to start off with, which became A Different Story, and that was so good. And in the meantime, it's all a little bit of history now. I think a lot of people know about the story of how the publishing company came about. But and then I don't know, probably getting on for 2 years ago now, A Caged Mind said, look at me again. And I picked it up and I looked at it and I thought how terrible the writing was. So I really needed to work on it again. So I did a lot of editing, and then it's had a couple more professional edits. Yeah, and it's just been, because I've been really busy, I had to, if I was going to make this happen, I knew I couldn't spend whole chunks of time on it. So I just, on my daily plan, I've got a daily plan. Every day it says a cage mind, and every day I've had to spend 10 minutes on it. And so just by 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, just doing, knowing what I needed to do next. I've got a project plan of all of the things that need to be done on it. And each day I'd say, right, okay, it's my 10 minutes today for cage mind. What am I going to do this time? Sometimes it'd be longer than 10 minutes. Sometimes it wouldn't be any time at all. Yeah, it's
Wow.
yeah. And now
So
it's
chipping away.
yeah. If people, like, one of the biggest things people say is they haven't got time to write. If you want to write, you've got to do it. You've got to find, if it's important to you to write a book, then it's got to be important to you to write on a regular basis. And for me, it's been important for me to write every day, even when I'm not writing a book. Like, I'm not writing a book. I went for long periods of time just writing on a daily basis, just for the sake of writing. It wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't going on social media. It wasn't going on articles. It wasn't going on blogs. It wasn't going anywhere. It was just in my journals on a daily basis.
Nice. And to the time question, is that everyone's got 10 minutes, right? So if you want to do something, you can allocate 10 minutes to it, but eventually I guess that grows, or sometimes you see that you want to do more.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
No.
I don't restrict myself to how much time I'd spend writing. And I don't, I know there's been days when I know I've been really busy. I do my writing first thing in the morning. I've been really busy. I've got that much to do. And I thought, I'll do 5 minutes. And I'll just do 5 minutes. And I might write half a page. And then another day I might write 4 pages. I might write for an hour or longer sometimes.
Yeah. So I'm guessing that just keeps it alive. So it's just there always in your consciousness, and you can just return to it very easily. It doesn't become something big that you have to, I have to dig that out again. It's just there for you. Nice.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because the more often you're looking at it, you do keep connected with it. When you have a big gap, it's almost like you have to kind of get to know it again. But I also think the big gap was really healthy as well for me, because I did think it was finished, and then after a long gap I went back to it. I could really see with completely fresh eyes, as if it wasn't even my writing. I could see what else needed to be done with it. And I'd learned a lot. I'd been in classes with Jules again for another 18 months of lessons, learning different dynamics of writing and all that kind of thing. So my toolkit had got bigger. So it's like, when I wrote it, I was writing it with just a hammer and a chisel, and now, 2 years later, I've come back and I've got this massive toolbox of things that I could use, and that enabled me to really make it more powerful, more interesting, more entertaining, more lively.
Yeah. So we do have a couple of questions, but before we move to the questions, now we've got A Caged Mind has been birthed. It's out in the world. It's sold copies. You're having this book launch. How do you feel about that?
It's a little bit surreal still. I mean, it's hard to remember when the other books have come into the world. Like, the first time was more scary, and it was almost like a non-event, because I didn't do any launches, I didn't do any publicity, I did nothing. Just luckily Ash took me out for a meal in the evening, which is the only way that we marked the day. But this one is it's different because it's a lot more personal. So there's a little bit of, oh, you know, there's this information, you know, what goes on in my head is out there for people to read. Again, there's a little bit of, you know, a little bit nerve-wracking about that. But I'm also like, it's underpinned by something much more sure about it. You know, I've got a lot of faith that people will read the book and it will be helpful to people. That will be able to see something in it that is helpful to them. It's not out there just on a whim. Like it's not, you know, haven't done it because it's, you know, I could have just written it and put it away because I just look at it and think, well, you know, it's just my story, but it's not just my story. So it's almost
not
like
a vanity project.
Say it again.
Sorry. It's not a vanity project.
No.
Yeah. And Jules Swales has described it as the last self-help book you'll ever need to read. Yeah, so you're going to help a lot of people with this book, Maria.
Yeah. It was
so
really, can I just say about that? It was really helpful getting that testimonial of Jules. I mean, I was very grateful to her as well. And it really helped me to see what kind of book it was. I think I knew that it would help people, but I hadn't made that strong connection between it being, yes, it's my story, but also it's a self-help book. It's clearly a self-help book. That's the way that I see it.
Beautiful. It's interesting it took somebody else to see that distinction before you did.
Yeah, I think sometimes it is when you're so close to it. That's why it's really useful to get other people looking at your work as well.
Oh, so let's just take a moment there just to mark this moment, this amazing moment of the birth of A Caged Mind, and also to mark you. So I'd like everybody to raise a toast with your tea or your champagne or your mocktail, or clap and just say, well done, Ria, and welcome to A Caged Mind.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
So the chat is blowing up, but before we move to the comments and questions in the chat, we'd really love to hear you read a chapter, if that's all right with you.
Yes. And
Okay.
I told you the story. I'll say the story how I chose the piece in the book that I was going to read. So I was thinking about it and I thought, I know what I'll do. I will pick the book up and I'll open it on a page, and whatever page it opens on, that's the book, that's the page that I'll read. And then I thought, no, that's a bit silly, really. It's a bit silly doing that. I'll have a read through some of the chapters and then I'll decide which I'm going to read. And so I picked it up. This is a few days ago. I picked it up and I opened it on page 126 and I read it and I thought, yeah, that's the one I need to read. So it's called I Step Out of the Cage. And let me take this off. Nothing happened today. Well, nothing visible to the naked eye, yet it will shape the rest of my life. I was at Dickens' house in Lacona, Washington, on the coast of the Pacific Ocean. Dickon Bettinger, my friend and mentor. Nothing on the inside can hurt you, he said. Autumn sunshine streamed into the room. 13 other people dissipated like a mirage in the desert, and I was left alone on an upright padded recliner in this warm and cozy lounge. Hummingbirds were frozen in mid-flight on the sugary feeder hanging outside the large patio window. My body became one with the cosmos. I melted into the spaciousness, the vastness, the universal allness words cannot explain. My eyes were closed, yet more open than ever. I was aware of nothing and everything all at the same time. My heart brimmed with something far greater than the word love can describe, but love is the only word that comes close. Dickens' voice hummed in the background. My thoughts can't hurt me, I said to myself. My eyes, fueled by emotion, had overflowed with healing waters. I welcomed the tears that ran smooth and unchecked down my cheeks. As they left my body, something else left with them, something toxic, dark and sinister that had inhibited and distorted my life, something I'd carried with me for as long as I can remember. I felt purified and energized, drained, empty and sated all at the same time. I was alive in a way I never had been before. Freedom had come into view, no longer hidden behind a horizon. Spaciousness revealed itself in my chest, where a rock had lodged itself many years before. A breath, a blessed relief had been sighed. A holding on, let go. A door opened. I stepped out of the cage. No.
Wow. I just had to take a moment then, that gave me shivers. And this from a person who thought she couldn't write.
The person who read it 2 days ago and thought, what a load of tosh.
That's right. Yeah. Wow. Wow. I see what you mean as well, in that it is your story and beautifully evocative, but it's everyone can resonate. I can certainly resonate with those feelings. Wow. Amazing. So I better read some of these messages to you. So there's a question. First of all, there's a comment from one of the participants, Edward Gray. Lots of resonating. Lots of resonating, in particular, the balance between conscious effort and planning on one side and trusting the other than conscious self-intuition. We achieve something via both planning, doing, and letting go and allowing the work to come forward in its own time. It seems to be about balance between intentional effort and trusting that the ideas are evolving in the background all of their own.
Yeah, really well summarized. Really
well
summarized. Yeah.
Yeah. And from Karen Miller.
Hi, Karen. Thank you so much again.
If you don't have a plan, an idea of what you're writing, do you just write from your deep voice and see what emerges and keep writing on?
I just write. I don't even write from a deep voice. To start off with. Before I knew anything about method writing, if I had a blank page and I didn't know what to write, I would just put anything on the page. Like, I know that I've started a page with Bar Black Sheep before now. I've started a page with, I have no clue what I'm going to write about today. Like, just anything to get as something on the page. And then with the method writing, learning about locating myself on the page. So most times I sit down, like if you were to look through my journal and only read the first sentence, you'd get sick to death of it, because it would always read, I'm sitting on the sofa, I'm wearing my dressing gown, got a cup of coffee on the table. That's pretty much how every journal entry starts. And then, yeah, then it takes me somewhere. And the method writing really has helped me to fall into the deeper voice much more quickly. I'm not saying I do it all the time, but yeah, I just write anything on the page to locate myself on the page. I seem to remember a long time ago somebody saying the blank page is the most scary thing. But it's as soon as there's something on the blank page, it's not scary anymore.
It sounds like to me that you're getting present with yourself in that moment. So you're getting presence with yourself, and then your writing comes through that getting present. It's like taking a moment to take a breath and feel where you are in the room, isn't it? Because we have so much going on in our minds all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it. It's about being, everything that I write in that first paragraph is what's happening right here, right now. not what I was thinking about 5 minutes ago or what I was doing yesterday. It's like what's happening right here, right now, how I'm feeling right here, right now. Yeah, so and then it's really surprising then where the writing takes you.
Really helpful. Okay, so there's an observation from Fiona. Really starting to see the value of writing daily for 10 to 15 minutes at a much deeper level. So that's very cool to see. We're not looking very pretty, but our glasses are raised.
Oh. I did look through. I've got everybody all across the top of me, and I saw lots of glasses and mugs raised, and
oh, good.
to see
Pete Mears says so much love and so much hope.
oh.
And Karen Miller is moved to tears from the reading.
It was
okay,
a good one, and actually that I remember writing that because I actually wrote it. I can't remember if it was the evening after it happened or the day after it happened, but the actual insight, the actual moment, I wrote about it very soon afterwards. So it was, I think, yeah, I think it was really fresh in my mind still when it happened.
Yeah, you sort of captured that.
Yeah, and some of the insights actually happened on the page. You know, some of the insights that happened. There's one, and you can download that chapter off my website called Fuck, and that was an insight happening right in that very moment.
Wow. Wow. So when you say some of the insights happened on the page, can you tell us a little bit more about that? What do you mean by that?
That's one of the things that I really love about the writing, because what I learn and the insights that come through while I'm writing, I've had so many over the years, so many really powerful things that have moved me inside, that have shifted something inside, that have made me see life from a whole different perspective. Many years ago, I wrote about a particular incident that happened in my childhood. It didn't happen to me. It was something that happened to my brother, and it was between my mum and my brother. And I wrote from the point of view of my mum. I didn't plan to do it, but all of a sudden I completely saw her in that moment. Oh God, it's really hit me. And I literally cried for 3 hours afterwards, because I'd seen something so powerful about my mum that I'd never seen before in a positive way. Never really seen her perspective. And I think that's one of the things that hopefully comes out loud and clear in the book, is that, you know, I felt like I had a really difficult relationship with my mum growing up, and I see it in a wholly different way now, a completely different way. I have a completely different perspective on my childhood and on her and on our relationship, and it's made a huge difference. And a lot of that has come about through writing.
Wow. So writing has enabled you to have different lenses.
Yeah.
Well, that leads on to a really cool question from Jean Swales, who wants to know who wants to know, what do you do, Maria, if you get upset by what you're writing?
Oh, blimey. I don't know if I get obsessed by it.
I'm upset.
Oh, upset. Oh, I thought she said
sorry.
I was thinking,
sorry.
Upset.
Well, you can answer that one as well.
No, I just carry on. Like sometimes, I mean, it's a really interesting one, because sometimes I don't even know how upsetting the writing is until I read it later. Especially if I've been writing for class. Even just last week, I wrote a couple of pieces that I took to class, and when I read them out in class, I was it really got me how raw the writing was, and how and I really got upset. So sometimes I write things and I don't even feel upset at the time, and then when I go back and look at them again and read them, then I do get upset. And then other times I'm writing and I've got tears pouring down my face, but I just keep going, because I don't get, like, sometimes you really have to go into that place in order to be able to write. Yeah, otherwise you're just not going to get the feeling on the page. For me, it's like, if you stop writing at that point, and try and come back to it, you're trying to capture something that you're not feeling. Whereas if you're writing in the moment with all the feeling of the upset, that's going to translate into the page as well. So I don't bother about if I'm writing or if I get upset while I'm writing. I just keep writing.
And that sounds like it would be very valuable for the reader to hear that emotion as it is through you on the page.
Yeah, I think so, because if you're not putting if all of your feeling isn't getting onto the page, then there is no feeling for the reader to resonate with. And that's why we're putting anything out in the world, is because we're hoping that the reader's going to resonate with what we've been through, and that if you know, I want people to know that I have felt really bad in my life sometimes, but I'm still okay. And if they're feeling bad, I need them to know that I'm not just speaking a load of codswallop. I'm not just, spouting something off. I'm writing this because I've been here. I've been in that place, and I have felt really, really low or upset or grief struck or, angry, and all of the emotions. And yet the spiritual understanding that I've gained over the last few years has enabled me to have all of those emotions, and them not make more of them than they need to be. I mean, for me, it's like, it's okay to be angry and grief struck and sad and frustrated and all of those things, because underneath I know that I'm okay. And so it's the same when I'm writing. It's like, if I get really upset while I'm writing because I'm writing about something that was really upsetting, underneath it all, I still know that I'm okay.
And when I had the pleasure of reading your book, I also felt like through your words that I was okay. So it sounds like what you've written helps the reader see that whatever they're going through, they're okay too. That seems to be the message to me.
Yeah, I would say so. There's a little haiku. I did some tiny little haikus for each of the different sections in the book. And the last one is, I know not to believe my thinking unless it wishes me well. And then, so it's like, that's the thinking that we want to be paying attention to, the thinking that wishes you well, even in everything else that's going on. It's kind of, there's some thinking that you're okay, even though you're going through really tough times or difficult times or the normal human things that we all go through.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have another couple of things for you. So from Linda Pettit.
Oh, thank you, Linda. I don't even know what she said yet, but I know I'm going to be grateful. Linda.
Linda says, I have had the sacred pleasure to read the book already. Once I started, I could not put it down. I was wrapped in awe of the story, the storytelling, and the writing. In the revision process, was there a place where you had to winnow down what went into the final manuscript and what did not? What was the revision process like for you, and what guided your choices?
Thank you, Linda. Linda's given me a fabulous testimonial for the book. I'm so grateful. Thank you, Linda. And I hope your arm's getting better. I love the editing process. And yes, there was quite a lot that came out. And even to the point where I thought I'd taken a lot out. So when it first started, I can't remember how many I had loads and loads of chapters, and I took quite a lot out to start off with to come to the final numbers. Then I had an early edit, and then I had 2 more edits later, and in some of those edits, the editor said, "I don't think you need these pieces," or "You don't need this bit." And there was a part of me that was going, "No, I do need these bits." There was one particular chapter, and I love the chapter. I absolutely love the chapter. But one of the editors said, "There is really no point to this chapter. It's just a rant." And it was just a rant. And in my head, I was going, yeah, but people need to know it's okay to have a rant and all of this kind of thing. But then I let my mind settle down. What I do is, like, I look at the feedback, and I have a reaction to it, and then my mind settles down. And then a bit later on, I thought, no, she's right about that one. And then there was another piece where she said the same, not quite the same thing, but she said, "I don't think you need this chapter, but because you've already written about this in another chapter, it's the same thing as you've got in another chapter." And it wasn't, it was a different message. But what it made me do then is go back to the chapter and I took a big chunk of it out, just to leave the core of the bit that I knew I needed in the book. So I take advice from people. I listen to what other people say, and I have the final say on it. And I do say this to anybody that I'm working with, that the advice that you get from other people is opinion, and you're the expert on your book. But listen to the advice, reflect on it. Like, you know, I had, especially with my first book, I shall tell you, had very adverse reactions to the feedback for my first book. It wasn't a pleasant experience for Ash in particular, because he's good at giving really good feedback about the book. And he actually had to say to me at one point, "Are you sure you want me to do this?" Yes, I do. Because even then I knew that I'd listened to the feedback, and when my mind has settled, even though I knew nothing about the principles at that point, I knew that once my mind has settled, I'd reflect on the feedback that he gave me, and the book's a whole lot better as a result of it, because it really does. It enables you to really look at making sure that what's in the book is meant to be in the book, and there's nothing extra. Like, I don't want my message diluted because I've got these beautiful lines that I've written, maybe, but they're not adding anything. What is it? Kill your darlings.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
And do you feel, because you mentioned that you had some time away from the book, from A Caged Mind.
Yeah.
Do you feel that time away gave you a new perspective as well?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. It was almost like I could look at it as if it wasn't my writing, because I'd had such a long time away from it. And you don't necessarily need 18 months away from it, I don't think. But that was just what, I was busy writing the daily yarns and publishing a different story, and doing a whole lot of other learning in the meantime. And I'm also very much believer is too weak a word, to be honest, but a believer in the timing is right when it's right, and that all of the other things that looked like they were distractions from A Caged Mind actually were beneficial to it. The book is, it's so much stronger. The cover art is so much stronger. The metadata and everything that's gone into the book is so much stronger because of all of the things that I learned, firstly in the daily yarns. Like, the daily yarns was almost just a frivolous thing, not frivolous, but it was just a learning exercise, nothing more than that. I learned such a lot by doing that. I'm so glad that I didn't make a Cage Mind that first book.
Mm.
That was that was my learning point.
Yeah. So really then the process looks after itself, the timing looks after itself. You go with, you've got the intention, and you went with it'll come when it's right, but you kept it alive enough to enable you to pick it up again when it was ready to be picked up again.
Yeah, because I think you've got to, it isn't just, it's not a laissez-faire, it'll come, you know, voodoo kind of thing going on. It's that you've also got to respond to the nudges when they, that's how I see them. It's like when a Cage Mind said to me, it's time to start looking at it. I knew if I was going to get anywhere, I'd have to give it my time and attention. Steve Chandler talks about time and attention in his book Creator, which I love. You have to give it the time and attention, otherwise it doesn't happen. There's a balance between, I think Ed said it in the chat earlier when you read it out, it's a balance between focused attention and allowing something to be.
Yeah. Beautiful. So there are other comments which I'll make sure I'll pass on to Maria, but as we're coming quite close to time, and we have things to do, but there is one other question that I'd like to ask you about. So you obviously you wrote your first book, Coaching Presence, where you said that you weren't aware that it was about presence until you'd finished the book, and then you've written in the subtitle for this book, it says how spiritual understanding changed a life, and I wondered about the link between those two books and the spiritual part of that. I wondered if you could talk to that.
Yeah, no, that was a big surprise after Coaching Presence was first published. I published that book and I thought, right, I need to now go and learn about art therapy. I need to learn about neuroscience, and I need to learn about, I can't remember, something else. There was a third thing that I was definitely going to go all academically focused. What happened is I handed the manuscript in. Ash had learned about the principles. He said, you know, there's this guy called Dickon Bettinger who's doing a talk in Essex. Can we go and see him? And it was after my manuscript was handed in. So I said, yeah, fine, I'll go there. All of those other things didn't happen because I was then brought onto a spiritual path in terms of having a completely different way of seeing how life works. And the presence and the spiritual essence, all the same thing. And what I really love about the things that I've learned with the 3 principles is that everything that I know is already in coaching presence. Like none of us are broken. There's nothing to be fixed. We all have inner wisdom to guide us. That was in the book before I knew anything about the principles.
Wow.
And then, so seeing the presence is it's not a thing that we do. It looks like it might be something that we do, but it all comes from coming from that place. And so it's only recently that I saw that link. I mean, I knew the link between presence and spirituality. That's been very, very clear to me. What I hadn't seen until a few weeks ago was the link between a caged mind and coaching presence. And for me, a caged mind is the next iteration of coaching presence. It's like it's going from the coaching presence is a good grounding for coaches in terms of, you know, thinking about their presence and how they are being in their coaching relationships. And then going from there to, okay, this presence thing is a much deeper understanding. It's something much, much deeper than what we do and what we say in a coaching relationship. And it's the thing that makes the biggest difference in everything. And then, so everything that I've learned about spiritual understanding and how it's changed my life has completely changed the way that I work with people as a coach. because what I'm always doing is pointing people back to their own wisdom. So that really good example of that is the editing. Is, you know, you can get advice from other people, you can get other people's opinions, but it comes down to, you know, your wisdom tells you what's right for your book. And that's the exact same thing that I'm pointing to with anybody that I'm working with who's writing a book, as any leader that I'm working with, as any coach that I'm working with, always pointing back to that part of us that knows.
Wow, I could talk to you all night.
And we have done that before.
That's true. Before we move on to announcing the competition, someone called Jules would like to know. Jules Swales would like to know, so now what? Is she going to start working on a new book?
Oh, blimey. I have no idea. I will keep on writing. When we were at the Writers' Festival, I can't remember, in one of the workshops, we were invited to think about our next book, and I wrote something like a poetic memoir. So that idea came up in that festival, but I liked the idea. It you know, it kind of gave me a little bit of a spark, but I'm not holding on to it. But what I am doing is I'm still going into class, and I'm still studying, and I'm studying poetry at the moment, and we'll see where it goes. And I'm sure there's another, I mean, there are some other books, because there's a few people here whose books I'm helping work on at the minute. So I'm going to be publishing those. We need to talk about another method writing book. We need to do another one of those soon, I hope. So yes, I think there's lots.
So ideas are there, they'll percolate, and you'll go with whatever's coming forward as the next thing.
Yeah, I think what will happen, if the past is anything to go by, which isn't always, is it? But if the past is anything to go by, at some point I'll see that there's a book kind of forming. And so in the meantime, my writing gets my time and attention, and then we'll see what happens from there.
And I would like to say, I hope there's going to be an audio book, because you read that piece so beautifully. We'd love to hear an audio version.
I've had a few people ask for that, and I'm definitely looking into it. That's another big learning curve. So I'm definitely onto that one as well. Yes.
Nice. Okay, so I'm sorry to the people that I didn't get to your comments and questions. I'll make sure that Maria gets them. However, we want to spend the last few minutes. We did say that we'd finish at 6. I think we said 6, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, yes.
So if you need to go, then do go. We won't think that's rude. But Maria, I invite you to talk about the competition, and perhaps tell us a little bit about the cover art.
So this is amazing cover art. I'm hoping that everybody can see it. This amazing picture is by Mackie, also known as Dolly Fine Art. And her and her publisher have agreed to let me have a signed limited edition print of the artwork as a prize for to promote the book. So you could have this amazing picture. You'll see I have got my own version, my own copy of it behind me. It's an amazing image. And all you have to do to enter the competition between now and the end of October, so 31st of October, so you've got time, is do an Instagram, a Facebook, or a Twitter post with an image of the book, and you can do that in whatever way you can, use your imagination to decide how you do that. But ideally, it would be a photo of you with the book. You have to put a hashtag CagedMindComp22 otherwise you won't get into the competition. You have to tag me, otherwise I won't know that you've entered the competition, and a sentence about the book. So you can do that at any time between now and the 31st of October and be in with the chance of winning a print of the book. There's also a second prize, which is Michelle Mackie, who's the artist, and I are going to do an exclusive Zoom conversation with the two of us. So we'll be talking about creativity, and I've had the privilege of meeting her at an event just a couple of weeks ago, and she's a very spiritual person, not surprising when you see her work. So that's going to be an amazing conversation. So 10 people will be allowed to join us in that conversation, and we'll have a live draw on, I think it's the 12th of November, to pick the winners. So it'll be really transparent as to who the winners are. So that's to come, and you'll start seeing stuff about that on social media very soon. But there's information on my website about that already as well.
And an email will come out as well with the information.
Yeah,
perfect. And then there's another surprise offering that you want to announce.
So I've decided that I'm going to run an 8-week book club based on the book. So the book is split into 8 sections, which on the face of it could be a linear path of, I don't like to say enlightenment because I'm not sure that I'm very enlightened really, but on that path, it's an 8-step thing. But it's not, as I said in the book, it's more like a dot-to-dot game than it is a linear path. But each week we will read the part of the book and then talk about what people are seeing in the book, what their insights are. We'll talk about, what my insights were that led to that. And so that will be an 8-week program that will start in January. And there will be a free taster for that on the 2nd of December. So in the taster session, what we'll do is we'll look at the parts of the book that are just before, up until the prologue. So there'll be the introduction, the foreword, the bit about the introduction to the principles, and the prologue in that first taster session on the 2nd of June. So people can sign up to the taster session now, and then information about how to join the book club in January will come out later when I've written the blurb for it.
So the taster session is on the 2nd of December. Jamie has put the link in the chat. Is there a limit to the number of people that can be on that taster session, Ria?
I'm going to say no, just for now. I don't think so.
Nice. And if there's thousands, that's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, might have to look at that.
All right. Well, you never know. So yeah, so sign up to that. That sounds like an amazing thing to do. So I think that's very exciting. The taster session is free, so you might as well sign up to that. And all the other stuff's going to be coming out. This will be on Ria's YouTube channel, and the information will come out on email. And I think we've covered everything. So it's really then,
good job.
It's really then a final thank you to everybody here, and everybody who's bought the book, and everybody who's shown an interest. You make it all worth it.
Yeah.
And a final cheers to Maria and the Caged Mind. Yay!
Thank
Hearts,
you.
everyone.
I really want to say thank you to everybody who's come today. It's been so lovely, and some of you have just been you've been with me a long time and been supportive for such a long time, especially Jacqueline, Jamie, Jules. You three have just been such a blessing. This book would not be the book it is or where it is now without you three, so I'm very grateful for that. But so many other people who are here have been such an amazing support, I'm very, very grateful, and thank you all for being here. It's lovely knowing that you're all here. Thank you.